and this is not what you want to see going on in your bilge. It's Technicians Tuesday, and this week we have a 1993 23-foot Mako with a 300 horsepower Verado, and this boat has a problem with multiple water leaks. The boat keeps filling up with water, and once it fills up with water, it will begin to porpoise uncontrollably as well as list to the port side, and I think you will be extremely surprised to see where one of these leaks is coming from. So we are going to take this boat out and figure out where the water is coming from, which is going to be a skill that might come in useful for any boater to have. Now before taking the boat out, we want to go around the hull and look at any place where there is a through hull and confirm that we don't see any of them that are loose or broken or just visually messed up that would be a spot for a leak to be happening. A lot of times there will be something going on with the drain plug, so it's important to be mindful of that. Now another thing we'll do before putting the boat in the water is we want to shut off all of the thru-hull fittings. Everything going to the livewell, the washdown pumps, any drains, macerators, or any other type of thru-hull that has a valve on it, we'll shut all of them off and then put the boat in the water. Once we are in the water, we'll take a moment at the dock to look around and see if there is any flowing water or if there is any water buildup at all. You want to be mindful that the boat sitting in the water a lot of times will be bow heavy, meaning that it will just sit with the bow slightly lower in the water than the stern. Not all boats will be like this, and you might not be able to notice it from the dock. But once you put the boat in forward gear, any water that is in the boat will flow from the front of the boat to the back of the boat. If the bilge was dryish when the boat was put in the water, then you shouldn't see much water. If you do right off the bat, you don't need to take the boat out to find the leak, you just need to look around and will look for flowing water or any signs of where the water is coming from. Having a dry bilge will make this easier to figure out, and if the boat has a bracket, we'll also want to inspect the bracket to make sure that it isn't filling up with water either. For this boat though, we didn't see anything when we put it in the water, so we took the boat out to see what we could find. After just one time of getting the boat on plane and running maybe a half a mile or so, we came off plane and found that there was some water building up in the bilge. We also went ahead and checked the bracket for water, and luckily we didn't find any water in here, so then we moved on to looking into the bilge to figure out why we had water build up in the bilge. And this is where we need to look around for flowing water, or want to look into the bilge and see if there's some dry spots and some wet spots. So all this over here is dry and we don't see any signs of water, but then when we look over here you can see that there's water all on this side. and that's going to tell us that we've got water coming from somewhere over here. Now the next thing we need to do is to look for flowing water. Since this is all wet, we want to see where the water is coming from, and the flowing water is what's going to show us where that is. And as you can see, the water that we see flowing is coming from the other side of this stringer here on the port side. But that is the big and odd leak, and I'd like to show you the other leak first. So we'll go ahead and start opening up our valves one at a time and looking around to see if we see a leak. Now this leak was pretty obvious. The one coming from the live well, whenever we would turn the live well on, it would fill up the live well, and then once it was full, it would push it over the top to let it come through these screw holes and drain down into the bilge. And that's just one of the problems that you'll see with these live wells that are in the deck like this that have an access around it. It always pushes the water up over the live well and into the bilge. Now back to our serious leak here on the port side. If you look at the gunnel, you'll notice that you'll see water running down the side of the gunnel, showing that water is coming in from somewhere at the top of the gunnel. And so what has happened here is that the cap of the boat and the gunnel underneath the rub rail has separated from each other, and so whenever you take a turn in the boat, or get on plane for that matter, water will flow up the side of the gunnel and be forced under the rub rail and under the cap to run down the side of the gunnel into the boat, filling up the bilge full of water. So we'll need to remove the rub rail and repair any of these locations where the cap and the gunnel have separated. Something else you might have noticed, that the boat is just plowing through the water like it's a displacement hull. This does have somewhat to do with the weight of the water that's building up in the bilge, but another thing that is adding to the porpoising and the terrible ride of this boat is that some of you haven't subscribed to the channel and made sure that that like button has turned blue. But once that's taken care of, you can see that the engine is just buried in the water, which is sucking the back of the boat down, and it's not allowing the hull to get up out of the water and get rid of the drag on the boat. But you'll have to watch this video here to learn more about how to get the correct mounting height of an outboard engine. Thank you all for hanging out with us today, and to everyone that has supported us by purchasing a shirt, and we look forward to seeing you next week.